lost it. So just my quick usual intro. I'm Lara, I'm a dual Canadian-British national, and I moved from the UK to British Columbia, Canada with my husband and my 2 dogs. You might hear one of them snoring in the background and we're absolutely loving every minute of it. We love our life out here so much. Please consider subscribing. I post YouTube videos every Monday and Friday, all Canada related content, and yeah, let's get on with the video.
Today I'm going to explain the process of how we moved our belongings with us from the UK to Canada and things I'd maybe perhaps do a bit differently if I were to do it again. So for a bit of context, my husband and I moved to Canada and my mum and dad also moved to Canada at the same time as us. So we all shared the cost of the container, and then the amount of available space that we had in the container was shared between the 4 of us. I'm going to go over the company that we used, how we found the process, costs, and also if I would do anything differently. We use PSS International Removals, and I would really recommend them for anyone wanting to make the move overseas because they serve all over the world and they were reliable, and everything of ours arrived safely and all in one piece, so we had absolutely no complaints with them at all. They were brilliant. So the first initial stage of shipping our items to Canada was having PSS come round the house and just kind of have a rough look at the things that we wanted to take to be able to give us a rough quote. I'm going to give a little bit more context here. So my dad has 2 catamaran sailing boats which are quite long and quite wide, which he wanted to take with him to Canada, and this was one of the very first things that he mentioned to PSS, like even before they came over to do the rough quote. So because the boats are really quite big and long and wide, and all of our other items were going to be packed in and around the boat, PSS recommended that we would have to go for the biggest size container that they do, which I believe is a 40-foot container, and we didn't originally plan on taking that much furniture with us. So when PSS came over, we just kind of pointed out a few things and said like a lot of it will be box sentimental things, because that was mainly what we wanted to bring, was those sentimental items. And the guy that came over to do the quote was just said to us, look, you're not utilising the amount of space you have available in this container. You have to pay the money anyway if you want to get your boats over. You're going to have to go for this big size, so just maybe reconsider and pack more things, because you're going to have so much space in that container not being used that you need to pay for anyway. So after the guy came around to do the rough quote, we looked over what we had and kind of changed our minds and were like, okay, let's take this, let's take this, let's take this, let's take this. Whereas before it was really only going to be a couple bits of furniture and then sentimental things. So we were told that the container could take anywhere between 6 to 10 weeks to arrive at our house in Canada. So that accounted for sailing time and then customs clearing as well, which they advised takes about 2 weeks. So given this time frame that they gave us, we decided to book them in to come and take all of our stuff 2 weeks before we were due to fly, or maybe just over 2 weeks before we were due to fly, but around that sort of time frame. Some things I thought would be helpful to mention is that you can't bring certain things into Canada. So one example of this is mattresses. They just won't allow you to bring them in. I mean, I think there is a way around it and you can, but they have to be like fumigated and everything, and it's probably not really worth it after you go through all that trouble to bring them. So Rich and I thought that we'd take our king size bed that we had in the UK. As it was relatively new, we'd like only bought it in the last year, so it wasn't even a year old, and we'd spent that money on it, so we thought let's take it. But obviously we found out we couldn't take the mattress, so we decided we'd just take the bed frame and then buy a mattress out there. And we also had a double bed that was our old bed before we got the king size bed, and we said let's take that frame as well, and then we've already got a spare bed so people can have somewhere to stay when they come and visit us. So the next point applied to my dad's boat, and if you're going to bring outdoor furniture with you. For entry into Canada, these outdoor things need to be completely cleaned by you. The removals company won't do it. It can't have like any soil on it from the UK, any dirt, anything like that. It's got to be completely clean before it goes on that container. Another thing you kind of need to consider in general is that at some point, whether that's in the UK or in Canada, you are going to be without your furniture and the things that you're taking. So I think you need to consider that when you're booking the removals company in, and I'm going to come back to this point a little bit later on, so yeah, we'll come back to this point a bit later. Once our shipping container left the UK, we were given the vessel number and the route that it was taken by the shipping company. This was something that we asked for, but like it wasn't an issue for them to give it to us at all. They just gave it to us as soon as they had the information. And because we had this information, we were able to track it and see whereabouts it was and things like that. So that was really helpful to have. So I'd recommend asking the company for the route and vessel number so that you can track it. And it was funny actually, because our shipping container arrived to Vancouver from Montreal by train at the same time Richard and I were visiting Vancouver for a couple of nights around Christmas, so we were both there at the same time, which was quite funny. Okay, so a bit of paperwork talk here. If you are shipping your belongings by container to Canada and you're arriving on a visa or your permanent residency, you need to fill out a BSF186 personal effects account document. I'll link that below, and this is a document that lists what you are bringing with you to Canada later, so not the stuff that you're bringing with you on the plane, but if you've got anything arriving later, you have to fill out this form and show it to customs when you arrive in Canada. Now the shipping container was booked in my dad's name, so he handled all the paperwork. Sorry if you can hear my dog snoring in the background, but I will explain the process as best as I can based on what he's told me. Once we knew the items that we were going to be shipping with PSS, you have to fill out a form with them of what you're taking and the value of everything that you're taking with them. This is all for insurance purposes for them and also for you. We roughly guessed this for a lot of things because we were taking so much, we just didn't have the time to sit there and, you know, like count every single thing individually and like work out what the value of things were, because it's like literally for everything, so there'll be like a long list and they'll list different items like table, chairs, dresses, necklaces, things like that, and then there'll be a column where you say how many of them you're bringing and then what the value is. So we just kind of roughly guessed that, and because we just did a rough estimate, because this was for insurance purposes, we were the ones undervaluing it if anything were to go missing or get broken or damaged. You know, that was like, we were liable to that, and we were happy with undervaluing things slightly rather than sitting there and working everything out. So I would maybe recommend doing that if you feel happy, you know, maybe slightly undervaluing your things. So this list that we had filled out with PSS, my dad was able to use that information for the customs form. The customs form is kind of similar, so it wants you to kind of group items together. So if you're bringing like a load of furniture, you group that together, write the value, and he just stated that everything was for personal use. It looks like a lot when you see that form and you're like, oh my god, I have to list everything. But if you kind of work from the form that you gave your removal company, which is listing everything that you're taking with them, you can use that to kind of fill out the form and just group things together and do a rough estimate of what the cost is of the stuff you're bringing with you to Canada. When my dad landed in Canada, he was travelling with one of our dogs, so he had to declare my dog at customs and do the paperwork for the dog, but also show them that BSF186 form. He said the customs officer that he spoke to only kind of flicked through the form and didn't look at it in great detail and signed and stamped it off. But obviously you never know what officer you're going to get, so definitely always fill out any paperwork that you're required to and make sure everything's correct. Once the container arrived in Vancouver, we were contacted by the partner company that PSS work with here in Canada, and my dad was told that he would need to travel to Vancouver to clear the customs himself. So he booked an overnight stay in Vancouver to do this, and he said customs was cleared in about 2 minutes. My dad was told he would need to take all of our passports with him, so mine, my mum's, my husband Richard's, his passport, proof that my mum and I had been living in the UK for the last year because we're both Canadian citizens, and I believe he also was told he'd need to bring proof that he had been living in the UK and my husband Rich, but theirs wasn't dated back for the last year. Theirs could be any date. It was just my mum and I for the last year because we have Canadian passports. But the customs officer that my dad saw literally only wanted to see his passport. So yeah, he didn't need to take all of ours, but it is still a requirement that they're going to give you. And as I said before, you never know what customs officer you're going to get, so make sure you bring everything that they ask of you with you and that you have all the paperwork that you need. And that's pretty much the process of moving our things from the UK to Canada. I hope it was helpful. As I'm editing this back, I realise I just missed a couple of points that are probably still quite helpful. You don't need to pack anything. The shipping company will well, I don't know if it's the case with all shipping companies, but definitely with PSS, they pack absolutely everything for you. I'd already packed some things in boxes and they repacked all of it because obviously they're doing it for their insurance purposes as well. So yeah, you don't need to pack anything. They will literally do it all. And I didn't mention costs. We paid just over £14,000 in total. But bearing in mind, this is obviously us having the biggest size container to accommodate for the boats. But yeah, for the 40-foot container, we paid just over £14,000. And as always, if you have any questions, please just ask me. I'm happy to answer any the best I can and help in any way that I can. I hope the customs clearance section of this video wasn't too vague, but as I said, it was my dad that did all of this and not me, so I can't really give a proper in-depth description of what happened. I'm just kind of going off of what he relayed to me. Now, things I would have done differently with shipping our belongings now that we have done it. I definitely wouldn't bring as much with us as what we did. I know with us it was more because we had the available space and were told that we weren't utilising the space. We did end up taking more than what we had originally planned. But the thing is, for example, Rich and I took a sofa that we had in the UK because it's a sofa bed, pots, pans, our bed frames, without realising that a Canadian king size mattress is bigger than a UK king size mattress. So we ended up having to buy a new Canadian king size bed frame anyway, because our new king size mattress wasn't going to fit our king size UK bed frame that was coming. And then the thing we found was that because we had the period of time being in Canada without our stuff arriving, so we landed in Canada on the 19th of November and our things from the UK arrived here at our house at the start of January, that we ended up buying a lot of things that we had shipped with us anyway. So Rich and I bought a new sofa, which I'm sitting on now, so that we had something to sit on. We both got a new desk each, so that we had something to work from. We brought pots, pans, frying pans, cutlery, glasses, plates, so that we had stuff to be able to use here. And then by the time our UK stuff did arrive, it was a bit like, we don't actually need all of this because we bought it all here. And I think when you move into a new house as well, you kind of get a sense of what style you want to go with, this style of how you want to accessorize things and what color you want your furniture to be, and that's stuff that you don't know until you get to a place and you see what's available to you. So I think, yeah, I just definitely wouldn't bring as much. So when we shipped our stuff from the UK, I had a vision of how I wanted our lounge to be decorated, what colour scheme I wanted to go for, and that's now completely changed now that I've got to Canada. So yeah, just maybe bear those things in mind. I mean, having the sofa that we brought from the UK will be handy to us because, as I said, it is a sofa bed, so that's another place for people to stay when they come and visit. But I mean, that sofa at the moment is just kind of sitting in a corner and it doesn't really have any use at the moment because we have this sofa which we use all the time. But yeah, the point I'm basically trying to make is just obviously consider that either in the UK or here in Canada you're going to be without that stuff for a while, so you are going to probably purchase new things to be able to use in Canada while you're waiting for that stuff to arrive. And then, yeah, you'll realise that maybe you don't quite need to bring everything that you thought you did with you because you've got new things here. I think if I was to do it again, I would probably only really bring the sentimental items, things that are irreplaceable to you. For example, with me, my mum was an amazing artist and made loads of plaques, house plaques, decorations, painted furniture for me. So that was one bit of furniture I knew I was always going to take because it's a sentimental thing. But yeah, I think if I was to do it again, I would just bring the things that I'm attached to and that are sentimental to me rather than lots and lots of furniture. But of course it's completely up to you and how you want to do it. This is just something that we found in the experience, and that is just one piece of advice I would definitely offer. But everybody's different and everybody can do it exactly as they want to, so I'm not telling you what to do, it's just a piece of advice. Yeah, I hope it helps. So that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you'd like to see more Canada related content, then please consider subscribing and following my social media accounts, which are listed below. I'm Lara, this is Our Life in Canada, and until next time, take care. Bye!